A Senate leader who spent an entire year refusing to budge just reversed his position in less than 2 weeks. And the catalyst wasn't a poll, wasn't a donor, wasn't even pressure from the White House. It was a phone call. A phone call that happened hours before one of the most powerful men in Washington died without warning in the middle of the night. If you understand what was said during that call, you understand why the next 7 legislative days could determine whether the most significant election reform in a generation becomes law before the midterms. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what changed John Thune's mind, why a man on his deathbed spent his final political breath on this issue, and what's about to happen on Capitol Hill. If this matters to you, hit that subscribe button now. Every single view tells the algorithm that people are watching what happens next in the Senate. Let's break it down. July 11th, a Saturday evening in Washington. Senator Lindsey Graham had just returned from his 10th trip to Ukraine. He'd sat down with Zelensky the day before. That same Friday, he and a bipartisan group of senators had announced a Russia sanctions package with the White House. Legislation he'd been pushing for years. He was 71 years old. He was scheduled to appear on Meet the Press the following morning. Then late that night, emergency responders arrived at his Capitol Hill residence. Cardiac arrest. By early Sunday morning, his office confirmed what nobody saw coming. Lindsey Graham, first elected to the Senate in 2002, was dead at 71 from what his staff described as a sudden, brief illness. The D.C. medical examiner later issued a preliminary determination: aortic dissection stemming from atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, a rupture in the main artery leaving the heart. Swift, catastrophic, zero warning. Now here's the detail that turned a personal tragedy into a political earthquake. President Trump had spoken with Graham that very evening, hours before the ambulance arrived. Trump later told Meet the Press he'd talked to Graham on Saturday night. And aside from sounding tired, Graham seemed completely fine. This wasn't small talk. According to the president, Graham told him during that final conversation, "We're all set for the SAVE Act." Let that sit for a second. The last documented political statement from a man who served 23 years in the Senate concerned locking down American elections. The president posted that Graham was one of the greatest people and senators he'd ever known. Flags dropped to half staff. But it's that one sentence, that single promise about the SAVE Act, that set everything in motion. What did Graham mean by all set? What did he know that John Thune didn't? Hold that question, because the answer shows up later in this breakdown, and it comes directly from the Senate Majority Leader himself. First, you need to understand why Lindsey Graham was uniquely positioned to make that promise. This is the part almost nobody covering this story is explaining. Graham wasn't just another senator. He chaired the Senate Budget Committee. And in today's Senate, the Budget Committee chairman controls the single most powerful legislative tool in existence: reconciliation. Reconciliation is a special budget process that allows a bill to pass the Senate with just 51 votes. No filibuster. No begging Democrats for permission. It jumps straight over the 60-vote barrier that's blocked Republicans from advancing the SAVE Act through normal channels repeatedly. Graham had already steered major reconciliation packages through the chamber. And reporting after his death suggests he was exploring whether a third reconciliation package could include election integrity provisions. That's the machinery he controlled. That's why his final words to the president carried weight. He wasn't hoping, he was building. So what exactly is this legislation that a dying man used his last phone call to advance? The SAVE Act does 2 core things. It requires proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections, and it includes additional safeguards like voter identification. That's it. That's the entire so-called extreme, divisive, dangerous proposal at the center of this fight. Show documentation proving you're an American citizen before casting a ballot in American elections. It's President Trump's #1 legislative priority this year. And Senator Mike Lee, the bill's loudest champion, summarized the philosophy behind it in one sentence back in February. We want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. Now, regardless of where you stand politically, ask yourself an honest question. What's the real objection to that? Democrats have answered openly. Chuck Schumer vowed to fight the bill tooth and nail. He flat out told CNN's Jake Tapper, "We will not let it pass in the Senate. Not we have concerns, not let's negotiate, we will not let it pass." That's the wall this bill has hit over and over, and for an entire year, that wall didn't move. Here's what happened. Early June, 4 Senate Republicans voted down an amendment that would have attached the SAVE Act to the party's immigration enforcement funding bill. 4 Republicans. Democrats didn't even kill it that round. Then Republicans tried to force it through the budget process anyway. It fell far short of the 60 votes needed to override the rules. The bill was ruled non-compliant with reconciliation statutes. Every path ended at the same dead end. And standing at that dead end, arms folded, was John Thune. Now, I want to be fair here. The record shows more nuance than flat-out opposition. Back in March, Thune actually told reporters he was open to using reconciliation for the SAVE Act. But by June, he was citing the Byrd Rule. He warned on Fox Business that if the parliamentarian strips the bill from the package, it goes back to needing 60 votes, not 51. His explanation was purely procedural. It's got to be principally budgetary, not policy-oriented, he said. That's not a man fighting. That's a man explaining why fighting is pointless. And to millions of voters, that kind of detachment from the most powerful Republican in the Senate hurt worse than an outright no. Let me spend 90 seconds explaining this Byrd Rule, because once you get it, the entire strategic battlefield comes into focus. And almost nobody covering this story bothers to lay it out. The rule is named after Robert Byrd, the West Virginia Democrat who served in the Senate for more than half a century. Reconciliation was created in the 1970s as a fast track for budget bills. Byrd worried that senators would stuff every policy wish into these filibuster-proof packages. So the Senate adopted his rule. Any provision in a reconciliation bill that's extraneous to the budget, anything whose fiscal impact is just incidental to its policy goal, can be challenged and stripped by the parliamentarian. An unelected referee. That's the tripwire that's caught the SAVE Act every single time. A citizenship requirement for voting is policy, the referees say, not budget. But here's the context skeptics conveniently leave out. The Senate's sacred procedures aren't actually sacred. In 2013, Harry Reid and Senate Democrats nuked the filibuster for most nominations when it suited them. In 2017, Republicans expanded that to Supreme Court justices, the only reason the current court majority exists. The Senate bends its own rules when the majority decides something matters enough. So the real question was never whether the Senate can do this. The question was whether John Thune wanted it badly enough. And for a year, the honest answer was no. Then, his friend died. Before we get to Thune's transformation, you need to see the pressure that was already building beneath him. Because the House side of this story is chaos. By late June, conservative hardliners in the House had simply run out of patience with Senate excuses. Republican Representatives Anna Paulina Luna, Chip Roy, Victoria Spartz, Thomas Massey, Tim Burkett, and a handful of others voted down a procedural rule. In doing so, they paralyzed House floor operations for the second straight week over the SAVE Act. They froze their own chamber. 14 House Republicans voted to kill a procedural measure that would have attached the SAVE Act to the $1.15 trillion defense spending bill. Speaker Mike Johnson had to send lawmakers home early for a nearly 2-week holiday recess. Johnson was visibly frustrated. He told reporters it made no sense to stall House progress because some Senate Democrats refused to do their job. Even President Trump urged them to stop the grandstanding. They still wouldn't budge. Think about what that means. These members were willing to defy the president himself, freeze the entire legislative calendar, torch their own party's agenda. rather than let election integrity die quietly. That was the landscape on July 10th. A frozen House, a gridlocked Senate, and an immovable Majority Leader. Then came the night of July 11th. Grief does strange things to institutions. Within a day of Graham's passing, Thune called him a trusted advisor and colleague to him and many others. He noted that presidents and heads of state had relied on his counsel. Heartfelt, certainly, but words are just words. What followed was not words. On Tuesday, Senator Mike Lee stood up and urged his colleagues to honor Graham's dying wish and pass the bill. A dying wish. That's the framing now. And it's not spin. It's literally what the president says Graham told him hours before his heart stopped. And suddenly, the immovable object started to move. Now comes the part of this story that should have been on every front page. This week, the House broke its weeks-long deadlock, and the method was legislative jujitsu. House Republicans approved a rule by a vote of 215 to 211. A crucial win for Speaker Mike Johnson by advancing a plan to combine the SAVE Act with a fiscal 2027 appropriations bill funding the State Department and national security programs, a tactic known on Capitol Hill as MERV, borrowing from the missile term, multiple warheads on top of a single rocket. The SAVE Act is now a warhead bolted onto a national security funding bill. Johnson won over Luna and Burchett, the same two members who'd opposed the approach before the July 4th recess. The rebels came back because leadership finally committed to the fight. And they didn't stop there. The House also passed a procedural resolution directing that the SAVE Act be included in the reconciliation package Republicans are calling Reconciliation 3.0. The very vehicle Lindsey Graham had been engineering. Two tracks, one bill riding on must-pass national security funding, the other embedded in the filibuster-proof budget lane. The House has done its job. Which turns every eye in Washington to one person. And now I can answer the question I asked at the top. What did Graham mean when he told Trump they were all set? John Thune just gave his theory. And in doing so, he crossed a line he'd spent a year refusing to approach. In an exclusive interview with the New York Post published Thursday, Thune said Republicans may finally have a workable path to pass the SAVE Act. And he reflected on what Graham might have told the president before his death. He admitted he couldn't know for sure what his late friend meant. But then the Senate Majority Leader, the same man who spent June lecturing everyone about the Byrd Rule, said of the reconciliation option, "There is a way in which I think you could do that." Stop. Let that echo. There is a way. From John Thune. Reporters covering the beat noted this might be an effort to ease tension within his own caucus. MAGA-aligned senators had been pressuring him for months to unify the GOP behind the legislation, even as he kept saying the votes weren't there. Fair enough. Maybe it's caucus management. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's a man realizing that his friend's final political act deserves more than a procedural shrug. But whatever the motive, the words are on record. And words like that from a majority leader carry weight. When Thune said there was no path, there was no path. Now he says there's a way. That's the shift. That's the entire story. And the people around him are making sure he can't quietly back out. Mike Lee and Rick Scott are demanding the Senate cancel its cherished August recess. Both senators are pushing to forfeit lawmakers' August break until the bill passes. And House members like Andy Ogles have joined the No Recess campaign. Lee's been beating this drum for weeks. In a video the president himself shared, Lee asked, "Why are we taking a recess right now?" He pressed the case that the Senate should finish its work instead of disappearing for weeks. And Lee has a backup plan too. One he floated months ago that suddenly looks prescient. If Democrats want to obstruct a citizenship requirement for voting, force them to do it in full public view. He urged Republicans to bring back the old school talking filibuster. He argued senators have made it way too easy to filibuster in their sleep or while on vacation. He dared Democrats to stand on the floor for days on end explaining to the nation why proving citizenship is oppressive. Picture those cable news headlines. Democrats hold Senate floor through the night to block voter ID. Lee knows exactly what that image would accomplish 4 months before an election. Which brings us to the clock. And the clock doesn't care. The midterms are November 3rd. And because Graham's seat was already on the ballot this cycle, his successor will be chosen in those very same midterms. Consider the timing. The Senate seat Lindsey Graham held for 23 years will be filled in the first federal election after his passing. And the question hanging over that election is whether it'll be conducted under the reforms he spent his final phone call promising to deliver. Meanwhile, once the House reconvened on July 13th, it had just 8 legislative days before leaving Washington again for a month-long August recess. 8 days. And I'll be straight with you, because this channel deals in reality, not fantasy. The obstacles are real. The parliamentarian can still strike the language. Thune himself warned that if the bill gets stripped from the package, it's back to needing 60 votes. Some Republicans will waver. Schumer will unleash everything he's got. Nobody should tell you this is guaranteed, because it's not. But here's what's different now, and it's what you should watch over the next 2 weeks. For the first time, all 3 pieces exist at the same time. A House that's actually passed the mechanism, a president calling it his top priority, and a majority leader publicly stating there's a way. That alignment has never happened before. Not once in this entire saga. So let me leave you with this. Lindsey Graham and I wouldn't have agreed on everything. And plenty of conservatives clashed with him over the years. But there's something undeniable about a man who spends his final evening alive, exhausted, hours off a plane from a war zone, telling the President of the United States that the work of securing American elections is on track. Whatever happens in the next 8 legislative days, whatever the parliamentarian rules, whatever deal gets cut or doesn't, that phone call happened. And John Thune knows it happened. Every time he walks past his friend's empty desk on that Senate floor, he knows. The question now is simple. Does the Senate honor a dying wish, or does it file it away with condolences and head off to recess? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Will they act before August? And where are you watching from? I read every single one. If this breakdown gave you something the mainstream coverage didn't, hit like and subscribe with notifications on. And don't stop here, because this fight is shifting by the day, and the next development could break at any moment. Click on the next video and stay with us as we track every move in the battle for American election integrity all the way to November.